All right, so let's start with this D major 7th chord. Let's look at the scale that we were soloing over this. So we know how to play, the D major 7th, D minor 7th, C major 7th, C minor 7th, 2, 3, 5, 7. But let's look at this D major 7th chord and what we solo in our right hand. So we solo in the scale of 2 sharps. So we have this F sharp and this C sharp, but when we go to the D minor 7th chord, we flat that F sharp and the C sharp to go to F and C. So we end up being in all white keys. So let's go over how that happens. So we have 2 sharps in this D major scale. Then we added 2 flats to it, and that cancels out those sharps that it already has. So D major 7 or the D major scale has 2 sharps, and those 2 sharps are canceled out with the 2 flats that we add to make it a minor 7th chord. So this is a really key concept to get. When you're adding flats to something that is sharped or that has sharps, then those sharps cancel out. It's just like math. It's like when you have a -2 and then you add a +2, then that cancels out to be 0. And the exact same thing happens when we do this with scales. So if my scale in D major has 2 sharps and then I add 2 flats, it's like adding a -2. It's like when you flat a sharp, it just cancels out. It disappears. It's like so when we have these 2 sharps, then those cancel out, and we're left with all white keys. So we're left with no sharps or flats, which is actually what we're used to, because with this D minor 7th chord, we've played this before. This is our 2 chord. This is our D chord that we were always playing in the starter pack and Break Pack 1. And we were playing the C major scale over it, right? We were playing this all white keys scale. So that's just how scales work. So with the C major, when we go from C major 7th to C minor 7th, then what happens is that this C major 7th, we just flat it twice. And using our bead GCF, we now know which flats get added. So if I flat twice from 0 sharps or flats, then what that's going to give me is it's going to give me a B flat and an E flat, because we're going from the left to the right in the bead GCF. So if you do this, the same thing happens for this 2 sharps, is that when we take away 2 sharps, you just take away the F sharp and the C sharp, just like as if you were going from the right side of bead GCF, or the order of flats. So that's just one key concept that if you understand it, it'll really help your playing. You'll be able to say, hey, I'm in 2 sharps. And then you'll just be able to play in the scale of 2 sharps. And then I'll go to 0 sharps or flats, and then I'll be able to play in that scale too. So I'm actually playing in you could think of it as in C major for this D minor 7th chord. The scale that we use is C major for this, or you can call it D Dorian. We can just call it our minor 7th scale, or our Dorian scale. And our Dorian scale is just taking the major 7th chord with the major scale, and then you're flatting the 3rd and the 7th. So that's the D Dorian scale right there. That's the scale that you use over D minor 7th. So using this, you can really figure out just how you would solo over tons of chords. So whenever you play a major or a minor 7th chord, you know exactly how many sharps or flats that you can solo in your right hand, because once you know the major scale and how many sharps or flats that has, you just add 2 flats to it, and that's your minor 7th scale. So if I have, let's say this is one chord we can work on. This is F major 7, and F major 7th has 1 flat in it. So if you add 2 flats to that, and you make it a minor 7th chord by flatting the 3rd and the 7th, then we know that the scale that we're going to use in our right hand is going to be going from the left to the right in B GCF. We're going to have 3 flats. So we're going to have B flat, E flat, and A flat. And so if I take, let's take a scale with one sharp. So the major scale has one sharp, and then we make it a minor seventh chord. So we want to find our minor seventh scale. So it had one sharp, and then we flatted the third and the seventh to get to the minor seventh chord, which means that we canceled out one sharp, and then we're left with one flat. So I know, like, I'm like belaboring the point, but like I really want you to get this, because if you can understand this, then it'll just open up, you know, all new possibilities to be able to play. So every single chord that I'm playing in my left hand, I'm just changing the scale that I'm playing in my right hand. And I can only do that because I know how to subtract sharps or flats, or to add a flat to sharp, and I know how they cancel out and how they work. So you can use these over, basically you can just use this to find your scale that you're going to solo in your right hand. But for now, just know that the D major seventh, you know, we have two sharps, and then we add two flats to that to make it a minor seventh chord. And that cancels out those two sharps to give us all white keys.